I've met many of you before, and it's great to be here in this beautiful Jubilee room in the House of Commons. And I think for that we have to thank the Shadow Minister, Hamilton, for hosting us here today. And it's a great honour to be in this beautiful place to have the opportunity to address you. And not only did we have one Shadow Minister, but we actually had two. So with Catherine West as well. So that was wonderful for me to see that and to know that there is that great support for you today. So of course I would like to thank Mr. Ali Kashmir and Nazim for inviting me once again to make my contributions known to you with regard to this issue, which is, as I've said before, is very dear to my heart. Now I do appreciate that time is of the essence, so I'm going to curtail my speech. And of course I will endorse everything that has been said to date by all the speakers with regard to the issue of extremism and violence in the occupied territories of Jammu Kashmir and Azad Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan. There's no need for me to repeat them. Everybody in this room knows that this violence and extremism exists. They are in effect two sides of the same coin. And indeed, if we needed an independent verification that there are serious problems in the occupied territories, we don't have to go any further than to read the two excellent reports that have been prepared by the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner of Human Rights, dated June 2018 and July 2019. And I'm not going to go into them in detail because these reports are available online. But suffice to say that they concluded that neither India nor Pakistan have taken any concrete steps to address the concerns raised in these reports. And these reports have highlighted significant human rights abuses which take place on both sides of the line of control. And of course, since then, we've had the serious situation in August of 2019 when the autonomy of Jammu and Kashmir was further eroded by India. So the situation has only got worse and not better. And it was very interesting to hear Shadow Minister Catherine West say that she didn't accept that this was a bilateral issue between India and Pakistan. And I have to say, I very much agree with that. International human rights abuses can never be simply a bilateral issue. It is an international issue. Of course, India and Pakistan would be very likely to disagree with my remarks simply because, as you know, they consolidated their position after the Simla Accord in 1972, where they concluded that all issues pertaining to the occupied territories of Jammu Kashmir and Azad Kashmir were bilateral issues for them alone and them alone to decide. I find that to be an extraordinary situation considering that both of them have been in breach of numerous Security Council resolutions and international agreements and have suffered no consequence for that. And I'll come back to that in just a moment. But to deal with the primary issue, which is the issue of violence and extremism, we know they are two sides of the same coin. And basically, this is a very fundamental human rights issue because when people feel disempowered, disenfranchised, when they feel they have no hope for their future, when their relatives are taken away in the middle of the night and don't return, when their families are killed either by terrorist explosions or by militia gunshots, of course this leads to despair and grief and anger. And all of this feeds into the cycle, and it's a never-ending cycle of violence and extremism. And it has to stop. And we all in this room here agree that it has to stop. Now, there are measures that I could propose to you, but time is of the essence today, and I can't do that, about how we can deal from a psychological perspective about the issues of grief and anger and despair which lead to violence. But we do know, of course, that much of the violence and much of the extremism is state-sponsored or three-letter agency-sponsored, and it's done deliberately to provoke reactions from the other side. So that's what happens when you have a situation where two superpowers feel that it is their right and their right alone to decide the fate of the Kashmiri people. And what I find extraordinary is that they seem to have this view that it is only their prerogative or their right to do so. And looking at this from the outside as a lawyer, and I'm not a Kashmiri, obviously, and I would defer to all of you. You know much more about the situation in Kashmir than I do, but thank you for indulging me in expressing my views on this issue. And I come from a good place, a good heart. I'm a humanitarian, and all I want to do is to do my very best and to make proposals or to make suggestions which could be helpful to the Kashmiri people. But what I noticed when I went back over the historical issues pertaining to the Security Council resolutions and also the resolutions, as you know, there were 3 resolutions of the Security Council. They appointed 4 mediators and they appointed 2 commissions to go to the region, and that commission in turn had 2 further resolutions. And I've had a look at the correspondence, and what I would say, which might be helpful for those of you who maybe are not aware of it, I would say that the diplomats who were involved, especially in the commission that was set up by the Security Council originally, did everything in their power to try and resolve the dispute diplomatically. They literally bent over backwards. They couldn't have done really any more, but nothing they did would satisfy both parties. And it was clear to me in looking at the correspondence that ensued that whenever they made a suggestion that would appease one party, the other party would say, oh, no, 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 we can't have that, and you must change this, and you must change that. So then when they changed that to suit the other party would come back and say, no, 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 we can't accept this. So basically, this filibustering went on all the time to ensure that they never got as far as a truce agreement, and of course, they never got as far as creating the circumstances necessary for a plebiscite. Now, what I found very interesting in looking at the circumstances pertaining to the plebiscite was that it only gave the people of Kashmir 2 choices. They could either accede to Pakistan or India, but they could never have an independent vote. And for me, this seemed to be in breach of one of the fundamental articles of the Charter of the United Nations, which relates to the self-determination of peoples. So the Kashmiris were never given that option. Now, we know they didn't have a plebiscite. So one area that has never been explored, we've had the diplomatic, we've had the political, we've had the military. Nothing has worked. Neither India nor Pakistan have managed to bring peace or prosperity to the Kashmiri people. But the one area that has never been explored is the judicial area. And that's why I'm proposing, and I can talk to you about this later, proposing that you set up a select committee which would consider questions which could be put to the International Court of Justice regarding the issue that the Kashmiri people have been deprived of the opportunity for self-determination pursuant to the Charter of the United Nations, and they've never had that opportunity to date, and perhaps they could still have it in the future. I know a long time has passed, but you know, we live now in a reality where we're entering a new era. It's a multipolar world, and later on I can quote Sergei Lavrov to you on this issue. I'm being told it's time, so I can't deal with it now, but I'm just saying, I just wanted to express that to you, that there is a potential there for maybe another solution which you might like to consider, and I'm happy to discuss it with you later. Thank you so much.
Madam, what is valuable contribution? Now, may I invite